Association of Zambia. He was also captain of the squad, but was not on that fateful flight. Kalusha, it's great having you. 20 years on, and the memory of that national team lives on, I'm sure.
Yes, very much so. Thank you very much for having me on the program. 20 years has gone by like yesterday. I still remember what I was doing in 1993 on that fateful day. But I was glad that yesterday was an important day for us. 20 years later, for the families were at the memorial site next to the Independence Stadium, and we had also invited the Zimbabwean Football Association for a friendly match, and we got the clearance to go ahead, and we played the match yesterday, 2-0. So it was a wonderful moment, but yes, memories are very fresh.
I mean, you obviously had a personal relationship with these men. You were their captain. You were not on that flight, but I'm sure the loss hit you really, really hard because you had a personal relationship with them. Could you describe for me what you felt?
We were, growing up, and I was playing for Preah Wanderers, and the goalkeeper for Chabala was my roommate. We went together in the national team. We started together in 1982. So, it is almost, 11 years later, in 1993, that we had to part ways. And it gave me, most of the boys who were there, I was one of the older ones, I must say, because I've been around for a long time, together with the forward and the goalkeeper, the second goalkeeper, and I think probably wisdom. And for the rest, everybody was, half the team was under 24 years, in my opinion. So there's still a lot of football to play. They still had a lot to give to their country and them personally as a career. So yeah, it was heartbreaking that you can leave this earth without fulfilling your dreams.
Kalusha, it's Matthew Kenyon here in London. Shortly after, less than a year after this plane crash off the coast of Gabon, Zambia, with you as captain, reached the final of the Africa Cup of Nations. How did you find the strength to bounce back from the loss of so many of your friends?
Yeah, somehow we did reach the final. I think it was incredible, Martin, that when we started to regroup, FIFA did give us about 3 months in order to go back and make a new team. And so the enthusiasm from the boys, in my opinion, the Zambia B that came, the boys that came, with the exception of 1 or 2 players who had been there, like the Malitoli brothers, and Johnston and myself, for example. So there was so much enthusiasm. The team trained in Denmark for about 5 weeks before we came back to play in Zambia against Morocco. In the first World Cup qualifier. It was incredible, the amount of spirit that was in the team, and everybody just rallied behind the team. And I remember us coming here, and then we were 1-0 down in the first match at Independence Stadium at halftime, and the second half, I mean, it was just incredible. I scored a free kick, and then Johnston scored the winner. And in that period, I think in that 1 year, the next year, I mean, before the qualifiers, Zambia only lost 2 matches. The final of the Africa Cup of Nations in Tunisia, and also the World Cup qualifier in Casablanca, in Morocco. So it was incredible.
We're going to leave it there. Kalusha Bwala, the president of the Football Association of Zambia, remembering his teammates 20 years on.
Coming soon to the BBC World Service.
The Great Gatsby has often been called a great American novel.
Every time I read it, I am dazzled, I'm amazed by a different line.
Gatsby's passion is magnificent and heroic.
World Book Club celebrates The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. On air and online this Sunday on the BBC World Service.
BBC
100 FM.
Connect with the world wherever you are. bbc.com/news is available on your phone now.
This is the BBC in Basra,
Nairobi,
Bogota,
and in Phnom Penh on 100 FM.
wherever you are,
You're with the BBC.
This is the History Hour with me, Max Pearson, revisiting the week's witness programmes on the BBC World Service. It's the story of our time told by the people who were there. This week, we'll go back more than 45 years to a time when this man took a stand against the Vietnam War.
You might be ugly and you might be rough, but to whip Muhammad Ali, it ain't enough.
Also coming up, ever thought of carrying out a coup? Well, do make sure it fits in with your social engagements.
No revolution was mentioned, of course. I was too polite to ask. But the penny dropped pretty quick. At that point, I said, if you are planning a revolution, I have an Easter holiday coming up, and I'm not going to be out of it.
And we've got the ecstatic reaction to Haile Selassie visiting Jamaica.
A massive crowd of people all converged onto the tarmac, heading to the plane. And I was just literally swept along.
Those moments from history and more coming up after the news.
BBC News with Fiona MacDonald. The Prime Minister of Bangladesh, Sheikh Hasina, has visited the wreckage of the garment factory which collapsed on Wednesday, trapping and killing hundreds of people. Rescue work is continuing for a sixth day, but officials say they no longer expect to find any survivors. The owner of the building is facing charges of negligence. Anbarasa Nitirajan has more from Dhaka.
Rescue teams have started using heavy machinery to lift huge concrete slabs from the site of the collapsed building. The whole operation is being carried out with extreme caution as there are chances of finding survivors. Hundreds are still unaccounted for. Relatives of those missing are waiting anxiously as cranes started removing the debris. Meanwhile, the Bangladeshi Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina visited the building collapse site and also met survivors and families of those missing in this disaster.
The Greek Parliament has approved a bill that will open the way for the first civil service layoffs in more than a century. The aim is to cut 15,000 jobs to guarantee a further $12 billion of international assistance. The government is also planning to axe 150,000 posts by the end of 2015 by not employing new staff to replace those who retire. Scientists say they've identified 3 strains of the malaria-causing parasite that have become resistant to artemisinin, the main drug used to treat the illness. Rebecca Morell reports.
Artemisinin is a frontline drug in the fight against malaria. It's used around the world and can clear the infection in just a few days. To investigate, scientists sequenced the genomes of more than 800 malaria-causing parasites collected from all around the world. They found that some of the strains present in Cambodia were significantly different to the rest, and these were able to withstand artemisinin treatment. The researchers don't yet know how the parasites are beating the drugs, but they say understanding their genetic fingerprints will help them to quickly detect and track these strains.
The Hong Kong-based businessman Carson Yeung has gone on trial on charges of money laundering. Mr. Yeung, who owns the English football club Birmingham City, is accused of moving almost $100 million illicitly through bank accounts controlled by him and his father. Martin Patience reports.
Prosecutors say their investigations show that around $93 million passed through the accounts connected to the 52-year-old businessman. But Mr. Yeung, wearing a dark suit, appeared relaxed in court as he pled not guilty to all the charges. The businessman has made several unsuccessful attempts to have the trial delayed or the charges against him dropped. Today, Mr. Yeung's defence team launched a fresh bid to halt the trial. The judge is currently hearing arguments on this issue from both the defence and prosecution.
That was Martin Patience reporting there from Hong Kong. World news from the BBC. The Chinese authorities say they've arrested a group of people in connection with violent clashes which killed 21 people in the western province of Xinjiang last week. They described those arrested as terrorists and said police had also found weapons, explosive devices and flags belonging to the East Turkestan Islamic movement. More than 100 nationalist protesters have gone on trial in the Thai capital Bangkok for their role in the unrest that ousted Thaksin Shinawatra as Prime Minister in 2008. Their lawyer says they plan to plead not guilty to the charges that include terrorism. The new Italian Prime Minister Enrico Letta is due to address Parliament later today and set out his programme for government. His most pressing tasks will be tackling high unemployment. On Sunday, as Mr Letta's coalition government was being sworn in, an unemployed man shot and wounded 2 police officers, saying he acted out of anger at politicians. European Union countries are due to vote today on banning chemicals known as neonicotinoids, which have been linked to a drastic decline in bee populations. Last month, the 2-year ban failed to get the required majority, either for or against. And if that happens now, the European Commission has the power to impose a decision. This report from Chris Morris.
The proposal to ban neonicotinoids has been the focus of ferocious lobbying both for and against. Nearly 3 million signatures have been collected in support of a ban, and demonstrators will be making their point in Brussels again today. They say there's a growing body of scientific evidence that links a huge decline in bee numbers to the use of such pesticides. Bees, of course, are vital to food production because they pollinate so many of our crops. But chemical companies and pesticide manufacturers have been lobbying just as hard. They argue that the science is inconclusive and that a ban would harm food production.
BBC News.
Hello, you're listening to the History Hour on the BBC World Service with Max Pearson, an omnibus edition of this week's Witness programmes looking back at some of the events that have influenced our world. In a moment, the ballerina and the Panama coup, later Haile Selassie in Jamaica, and the newspaper scoop of the century that wasn't. First, let's go back to this week in April 1967. America is in flux. The civil rights movement is gaining ground. There are demonstrations against the Vietnam War at college campuses across the country, and the American heavyweight boxing champion Muhammad Ali has been called before a draft board. He's about to be called up for military service in Vietnam, but Ali says no.
Why should me and other so-called Negroes go 10,000 miles away from home here in America to drop bombs and bullets on other innocent brown people who's never bothered us? And I will say directly, no, I will not go 10,000 miles to help